Welcome to Creative Art Apothecary. I'm your host, Marina Tselner, and I am so happy and excited to introduce our speaker and my friend, Tam Orlando. Tam is the creator and guide of Reclaim Your Space, a shame-free, judgment-free, inclusive community of support for healing your relationship with your home. Tam's current work catalyzes powerful shifts in the tangible world by shining a gentle light of awareness on the connections between self and body, body and home and life. Her classes, retreats, experiences, writing and speaking inspire people to release shame and discover permission for a new, beautiful, truer self-expression to shine through. Tam, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, yeah. Always so happy. I'm always so happy to connect with you. We met together in a class. Yeah, we were learning cosmic smashbooking, which is this like awesome visual journaling technique. And we met on that class, and you totally blew my mind open on, creativity. I was like looking at it on the page, and you opened it up to our space and the environment.
Yeah, that was back in 2020. Wild.
Whoa.
Like,
Yeah.
out of lockdown, right?
Yeah. We had just entered into lockdown, and we were like, what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It was a
mhm.
very transitional time for me. And yeah, and it was sort of around the same time that I started Reclaim Your Space as well.
So can you tell us a little bit more about Reclaim Your Space and
Sure.
how it works, how you work, your work?
Yeah, sure. So Reclaim Your Space was born of, in the midst of COVID lockdown. I had been running a home remodeling company with my then husband for over 10 years, like close to 15 years. And we had to shut down. So we're in New York, New Jersey area. It was, very intense for a while. We didn't know how long it would be. And so in that time, I started kind of just letting these new things crystallize. And it was like a swirl for a long time. It was just like swirling and swirling. And it was like, these are all the things that I'm passionate about. These are all the skills that I've gained through like what I've been doing with people in their homes. I'm trained as an interior designer, but I'm also really fascinated by the body and how like the anatomy, but also like wellness on all levels, mind, body, spirit. I am also a certified yoga teacher. And so I just like wanted to understand how all these things could fit together. I'm also creative. I love to make art. I decided to study cosmic smashbooking and train in that as well. And so, yeah, I realized like it was both simpler and more complex than I thought. My sister called me one day around that time, and it's like, I'm really stuck with this room in my house. And I know it's not exactly what you do, but could you help me? I have this room full of clutter, all these boxes that I brought with me when I moved in, and I don't want to go in there. I don't want to touch it. Every time I open the door, something triggers me, and I just close the door, and I don't want to look at it. And I had also just started studying like trauma and how trauma is held in the body, and how we can move that through with different somatic tools, right? And so as she was describing these reactions in her body, I was like, oh, I recognize that. Like, that's a freeze response. And like, that makes so much sense. And I've been studying about, quantum physics and how energy is stored in between the particles of the cells and the atoms, right? So I was like, oh, the objects. I started to understand like the objects in our home hold energy and emotion and stories, and those impact us. And then our body has some sort of response. It might be a positive response. It might be a more like shutting down kind of response. But that can really affect how we're able to move through our space and thrive in our space, or deal with clutter in our space. So reclaim your space, and it started by this practice with my sister of like, let's try some like body awareness, nervous system awareness, and just having someone here with you, kind of guiding a very gentle, no shaming, no pressuring kind of process to clear the clutter. And within a 3-hour Zoom session, she had cleared like 90% of the boxes in that room, which she hadn't like looked at in 6 months before that. Right? So I was like, oh, I think this is something, you know, I think this is something. And when people started to try it out, I started offering it online. People were coming from all around the world and trying it. And the first time I taught it, it was a 5-day challenge. And at the end, I got this beautiful feedback. And this woman from the United Kingdom was like, cleared this table in my kitchen, and now there's space. I can fold it up and I can like move around my kitchen, and it just makes me want to dance. And she said, I've never asked myself what I want. And you were teaching us, like, what do you want? Do you want to keep it? Do you want to let it go? She's like, now I see that I can ask myself that everywhere in my life. And so what you've actually offered is freedom. You've taught me about freedom and permission. And I was just like blown away. I still get chills when I think about it, because I was just teaching, like, here's what you do with these objects in your house, and here's how you clear space if you feel frustrated. And but my vision for Reclaim Your Space has always been to inspire freedom of self-expression. And so it was like this ninja move, like in through the back door of like all this very like thing that we all just have to do. We just have to clear clutter. We just have to take care of our homes. It feels really heavy and boring and dull. And then it was like, whoosh, like what opened on the other side of that just lit me up. And so, yeah, so I'm very excited. And it's taken many different iterations since then. But I feel like I get to sprinkle fairy dust like into people's homes all around the world, like via Zoom, you know, and it's pretty awesome.
So cool, really so cool. The shame around the messes that we have, and often like when I'm cleaning, you know, until now, when I was cleaning was like I'm I hear I'm berating myself into cleaning, like for shame, this cannot be seen this way. But it's like, oh, for creativity, for joy, for love, for freedom. Whoa.
It's a huge shift. It's a huge shift. And I keep finding like everything just keeps coming back to like release shame, like notice the shame and let it go. Now I say like no shaming the shame, because we all have it, right? We all have those voices, like let them go and just, you know, be clear, like, okay, shame, you're not welcome here. Thank you. Thank you for your words, and goodbye. Like it changes everything. It really does.
And you talk about it, your environment, like the canvas or like soil. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So, you know, as you say that, what it's bringing to mind is that I tend to work with a lot of creatives in their homes. And I'm still kind of pulling out all the threads, but some of the threads that I see, and I'm one of those creatives, right? Like is like multi-passionate. There's so many things that we're doing all at the same time. And so all of those things kind of have objects associated with them or space that they need to be able to create these things, right? So there's that. I also see that a lot of creatives have kind of like a high tolerance and almost a desire for visual stimulation. So more stuff actually feels good. It can feel inspiring and nourishing when it's done intentionally, right? So I don't define clutter as like the quantity of objects. I'm not a minimalist. I'm not saying like get rid of everything except the things you use every day and are very practical and all blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it all comes from desire. So it's going to look very unique for each person. Creatives that I've mostly been working with seem to be more like maximalists. And that can be just wonderful and nourishing until it gets overwhelming and the balance kind of shifts and then they're like drowning in the stuff, right? And so the other thing I see is that we can see the possibility in every object. Oh, this could become something else. Or, okay, it's no longer useful for its intended purpose, but I can imagine another use for it. And so we tend to hold on to things a little bit more from this space as well. I see a thread where we can kind of like jump from one thing to another and just kind of flow between different spaces and different objects. And so a lot of the systems that I've come across and that are kind of like the traditional or conventional systems, they're kind of working against this innate creativity and these innate kind of like aspects of creative people that I see. And I believe all people are creators and creatives, right? But those who identify the most closely with that, those who are creating, in different media, in different aspects of their life, like on a regular basis, it seems to be a thread. But what I also see, what you spoke to at the beginning, right, is that there's this like block, almost like a disconnect in seeing our space as a canvas for our creativity as well, right? So I see someone who can make beautiful collages on paper with all these found objects, but then in their space, there's just piles and boxes and they don't know what to do. But when I can bridge that gap and offer that connection of like your home, the walls are a canvas, the space, like how you furnish it, right? How you layer on like fabrics onto your furnishings, how you choose to inhabit your space. These are all like ways that our creativity can kind of, like you said, kind of like expand out from the two-dimensional world into the three-dimensional world. And sometimes that's like just not a way that they see, but other times it's just like there's so much conditioning around how home should be that it like blocks that creativity, right? And there's so much conditioning around like this, like there's this entanglement between like our self-worth and value and how we maintain our home still, right? And culturally, societally, a lot of that has traditionally fallen on to women or those who identify as women, or those who are socialized as women even more, right? And when you're a creative and you want to be spending your energy and investing in creating something in the world, and there's this like pull back to like, but shouldn't you be folding the laundry? But shouldn't you be cleaning the floors? But shouldn't you be washing the dishes? It's this like, right? And so I like really reclaim your space is like very subversive. It's like, how do we take all of that conditioning and like flip it over and be like, let's make our home as simple as possible, tending to our home as simple as possible. Let's do it in community. Let's support each other so that we have all this energy like opened up to really create what we want to create in the world. And then how do we see our space as like this like really beautiful bed of nourishment that inspires us in what we want to create in the world? And so yeah, I get like very excited.
I can see why. I feel why. I mean, I can feel it in my body, and I love your suggestion. Just that the way you bring awareness to the body's role in all of this, and in our thoughts and our desires. Because you like just cut it off. Okay, body, I'll take care of you later. Right now, I'm dealing with mess. Like everybody's mess is like I'm responsible for it. I'm not, but I feel that way. So until now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a mom of 3. My 3 kids are here at my house every other week. And when they come in and then when they leave, it could be like as if a hurricane came through the house, right? And so it can feel so overwhelming right? And these aspects of creative folk that I was describing, each of my kids is exactly like this as well, right? So it's like exponential. And I'm a really big proponent of like empowering our children, empowering our partner, empowering anyone we share our house with through really powerful communication. Like, here's my vision for my home, for our home. I want it to be a place that we use it. We like really, we play hard, we create hard, we cook hard, we rest hard, like all the things. Like it's here for us. It's a place for us to use. And also, here are some tools so that we can keep resetting and setting certain guidelines for certain spaces so that there's places to relax at the end of the day. Or so that we're not like overwhelmed at the end of like 2 weeks where we haven't ever picked up a single toy for 2 weeks. Now it's very overwhelming. But if you could do it just a little bit each day, or we also support each other. How can we support each other in this, right? I'm finding more and more that the isolation really is a space where shame just thrives in isolation. But if we're in community and we see that, like, well, I'm not the only one who has mess. I'm not the only one who's really sick of cleaning up again, right? I'm not the only one who's like, oh, is this really how I want to be spending my time? Like, it unblocks something so shame can really release, you know.
So good. Yeah. Yes. Releasing shame. That's a possibility. Was pretty new to me. Another thing you opened me up to, which has been really helpful, was the creating from a trauma informed perspective. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is another area that, like, so the past 2.5 years almost now, like I've just dove really deep into understanding this, and it has just like, it's explained so much for me, like, and it's augmented everything else that I learned before about interiors, about home, about yoga and the body, about right, like everything. So first I'll say that, you know, this is like still an emerging awareness, like for all of us, I think. But the emerging awareness is that trauma is a natural response of the body, and it's an adaptation that happens anytime we aren't comfortable to fully express ourselves authentically, right? So reclaim your space, freedom to express yourself authentically. And then it's like, but what are we up against actually? What's actually blocking us? And so that's what trauma is. It's an adaptation to keep us safe societally, right? And socially. It's normal, it's natural, and it happens to all of us, right? So there's big T trauma. Those are like the events that you can name: death in the family, or war, or an accident, or right, and etc. But the trauma that is actually, it's insidious in that it's universal, and we don't, if we're not aware of it, then we are always like, what's wrong with me? To your point, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just do this? Why this seems so simple and yet I'm blocked? And a lot of it comes down to our nervous system. And so I talk a lot about the environment as a full sensory experience. All of our senses are constantly tracking our environment for safety, constantly. And safety could be physical safety, it could be emotional safety, it could be energetic safety. So if anything in our environment reminds us of something that was an experience where we weren't fully safe or free to express ourselves, our body goes back to that protected state. Just without, it's unconscious, it just happens. But if we're aware of it, then we can offer our body new information. And we can let our body know, actually, yes, that one time that happened to you, when it was unsafe, here's what's different now. Right? So that's one aspect. And then the other is, again, it's very personal, but What is soothing to your nervous system? And how do you intentionally include more of those things in your environment? How do you create an environment that is intentionally soothing to your nervous system? Because our nervous system is like, I was like, I'm studying the stock market right now. It's random. But our nervous system is like the stock market. It's like the waves of the sea. It's up and down and up and down. It's constantly moving and shifting, right? Between, I think of it like a spectrum, like relaxed, right? The parasympathetic nervous system, we're relaxed, our nervous system is calm, we're releasing hormones that allow our cells to rest and digest and restore themselves and heal. So we're healing in this end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, we're activated, we're triggered, we are in the sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze, appease. We're not authentically self-expressing, we're just focused on being safe. And what's amazing to me is like the smell of something that reminds me of a person I'm upset with has the same reaction in my body, the same response as if like a cheetah was chasing me through the savannah, right? Same response in the body. So how we then, with this awareness, we can be so intentional. And we know like, oh, my body is moving towards this part. How do I bring myself back here? And we have tools for that. Somatic tools, but also how we set up our environment. We set up these touchstone spaces like you were describing. That's what I call them, these places to rest, to restore, to come back to the calm, the nervous system. And what does that allow for? More creative problem solving. It activates the problem solving parts of our brain, right? We go from the parts of our brain that are just like, how do I get out of here alive, to the parts of our brain that are like, I can see possibility in everything, right? It activates our ability to communicate more clearly with others. So it builds connection. It allows for deeper self-awareness, calm, and actual healing in the body. Like this fascinates me so much.
So cool. Yeah.
I have a free gift that I offer. It's short and sweet, but I like to keep like the challenges, the ways that we start shifting our beliefs and the way we are in our space. I like to keep them very simple and smaller than you might think is powerful. It's more powerful. Like it's like the smaller, the better. So this PDF, it's called 10 Tips and Tricks to Simplify Your Home Tending Practice. And so you can access it at the link that Marina will share with you. And on that page, you'll also have an option to book a 15-minute call with me to see just where you're at and how I might support you. I offer one-on-one support virtually over Zoom, in person where I live, but you know, the chances of finding each other, it happens. And I also now am offering community sessions. So I have group clutter clearing sessions and cosmic smash booking sessions and gentle yoga sessions every week that are over Zoom, and they're super accessible, and people are just getting so much out of that, and I'm getting so much out of that, and I'm just loving it. So yeah, you'll also be able to find information on that.
So many good offerings, Tim. Thank you. This the other day, I paint on my clothes. I don't make time to change in and out because that'll take forever. I'm like, I could paint something in 5 minutes. So whatever, I paint on my clothes. So when I go places, people are like, "Ooh, are you a painter?" So many people. Just the other day, this one woman, she's a nurse, and she's like, "I love painting. I love it so much." And she went from like very, I'm at work like just very rigid to like, she just lit up, and I was like, "Ooh, do you paint much?" She's like, "Oh no, don't I'm in a small space. I can't create." I was like, she went from like open to just stay contracted, and I think, okay, can I introduce you to my friend Tam? Because like that's not a sign to stop. That's not a sign to stop. If anything, it's an invitation to like, ooh, go deeper. Like, oh, what's there? It's the joy that she was so lit up, and so thank you for offering this.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me today. This was lovely. And, every time I talk about it, it just helps me to remember like even deeper, because these are things that we all forget over and over again. And then we get to remember them over and over again. So
So good. Thank you. And to our audience, thanks for listening. And remember to stay creative. Don't let your space, your relationship with your space stop you. But remember to stay creative and have a great rest of your day. Bye.